Good evening and welcome. It's a Tuesday night here on DJing TV, and tonight we're going to kind of dig into one of the original icons in the industry. Chuck, can I say that?
Yeah, I will allow that. Yeah, that's fine.
Chuck the DJ is with me tonight. For those of you who have never met Chuck, I think the very first time we online met would have been back in the I don't know, I think it was probably Pro DJ or before.
AOL days?
It might have been just, I think we kind of bounced into each other in an AOL chat group, but I wasn't that involved. I just kind of went and looked a little bit. And then, of course, once the world changed, once we got more modern, and we started reaching out, you were one of the first people that I remember following some of your threads and such. Like 3 years ago, 4 years ago.
Yeah, I was lucky with the AOL chat, and then running into, ProDJ.com, and then DJ chat with Sid and Ryan, both having sites and pages, and being involved with because it was all about school dances for me back in the day.
Yeah.
Back then, and it was a great niche, and I've always had fun doing that, and so that was way back.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was really enjoying at that time, because I was a younger person also. So that really kind of took me into your wheelhouse and really got me following a lot of the things you said and such. But Chuck, for those who let's kind of tell people kind of where you're working today and where you are, and then we're going to go back and kind of tell the story that got you where you are today. So for those where do you work? What type of events are you still doing, and what kind of a connection do you have with the DJ industry yet?
Well, I'm in Northern California, about 2 hours north of San Francisco, in what most people would consider the wine country, Napa Valley, Sonoma Valley wine area. We get a lot of corporate events up here, and I don't book 95% of my own events now. I have two agents, one really main agent, and then one that kind of is a secondary agent that keeps me busy. And mostly I'm doing weddings, and it seems like the last couple of years, though, I have kind of gone more into the corporate world. When corporates come here for their retreats, they're here for a week or so, and hey, on Monday night, let's have a band, or Tuesday night, let's have a DJ, or Wednesday night, let's have karaoke. And the last couple of years, I've also gotten into game shows, and so that's been really popular. The Feud. I have to be careful what I call it.
Yeah, precisely. Yeah, there's licensing thing. Yep.
Yeah. And that's been real popular the last couple of years, and it's still full time for me.
Nice.
I average probably 5, maybe 6 gigs a month. Some months are like this month where I have one, but there are other months where I have 8 or 9. So currently, that's kind of what I'm doing, and just riding the wave, as I call it.
Yeah, and the wave is kind of apropos for part of our conversation as we go kind of telling the backstory. For those of you who don't know, Chuck, we'll get to that part. But Chuck, I want to go way back, though. Let's take it back to the very, very beginning when you were a youngster. Who was that person in your life that was that influential one that basically introduced you to the whole musical side of things, that all of a sudden you're like, wow, music is kind of a cool thing? When did that love kind of start with you?
Well, my sister was 3 years older than I was, so she was more into the music, and I got some from her. But she had a boyfriend at one time, a guy named Don, and I don't know if I can use his last name, so I'll just say Don.
Yeah, that's good enough. Yep.
Yeah, and he was the cat with the big stereo, and he played the music. And I was the little brother, and I would get to go hang out. And I think if I had to trace it down to one person that really brought me into the music world, I would have to say Don.
Sure.
And when I still see him, and we're still friends on Facebook, and we still hang out. He used to give me quarters to leave him and his sister alone, to leave him alone. So that, so he's been around a long time. But yeah, I would have to say Don Jackson. Well, Don.
Yeah. So when in those early days, what kind of things was Don playing that was like kind of connecting with you?
Kind of rock, I would say, like Beatles and Stones, 60s rock, psychedelic. Then we kind of got into. one of the big records I remember him having that I just would play over and over was Grand Funk Railroad.
Mm.
And that was, foot stomping music was just like, just tremendous. I just loved that, Dun, 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 dun. Give me a song with a good bass line, and I go nuts. That was a biggie.
No, for sure. Good stuff. Good stuff from that era. There's tons of good music, of course, from that era.
Yeah.
So as you kind of then grew up and you were going through the school years and such, did music play a big part of your life beyond, kind of a typical teenager, or how did that go?
When I hit junior high, I played trombone in the band,
Mm-hmm.
in the school band, and that actually opened me up to more than just rock. Because obviously, in a school band, you're playing, swing music, and you're playing, Glenn Miller and all that kind of stuff. So I think that opened up my brain to a lot more, a wider variety of music, being in the school band. And I was DJing at that time too,
Mm.
and we were doing school dances at that time too. So there was a music store in the town that we lived in that would rent me the 45s for 10 cents a 45 when I was doing these school dances. And I would say, hey, I'd like to thank Harmony Music Store, which they're not around anymore, but
Yep.
for the music. So it was a plus for them because they were getting free advertising, and I was getting records, and I would put them on tape so I'd have them for the next time. So
Oh, okay.
that was, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That was huge. That was huge. I had a huge tape collection, yeah, that was. I miss those days.
Mm-hmm.
The early days of school dances with the energy and the volume. I miss the volume of playing a big loud sound system in a school. Yeah, you can't beat that.
Let's talk about that as early sound systems and kind of describe what you were using for gear, because I always find this so fascinating, because I look back at some of the early pictures and Ben Stowe talks about his cream corn lights, the can lights.
Oh, yeah. Coffee cans, but screwing the light bulb in the coffee can.
Yeah.
And I was fortunate because I was surrounded by a core group of guys that everybody kind of seemed to have their own little, like one guy was good with lights, and one guy was good with sound, and one guy was good with whatever. And when we were doing our shows back then, there'd be 4 or 5 of us that would kind of everything draw it together. It was for fun. We would make $50 or something, And I was always the MC. I was always the front guy. But I had a couple guys running the lights. And back then we had a very 60s style light show with overhead projectors and slide projectors. And it would be like, John, you bring that slide projector, and Jeff, you bring that slide projector. And hey, Dave, why don't you bring that speaker, and then we'd all get together at XYZ school, and we'd put all this stuff together.
Nice.
And I would always do the music, and a lot of times I would put them on tapes. And if we had a 3-hour school dance, I would make 3 hours worth of music. And I had a DJ that would put the tape in, and I would be on center stage, either sitting in a chair, kind of rolling back and forth, or I would be standing there with a microphone, and I knew what songs were coming, and I would announce the songs, and I would hype the crowd. And back then that was what we did.
Mm-hmm.
And people would hire us back then because they couldn't afford a band.
Right.
When they couldn't afford a band, we'll do the DJ guys. And it wasn't until, years later that DJs kind of came into their own.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Oh yeah. In those early years that, we did a similar thing. There were 4 or 5 of us at many shows early on. And it was, playing for, pizza and a little bit of money. And that was about the extent of what we did. Cause we just.
Right.
Yeah.
And this was before any of us drove too, because the parents would have to like, oh my gosh, you're going to go do another school dance. Okay, we're going to load this stuff in our car, and we'll drive you to the school, and then we'll unload it, and then we'll go home, and then we'll come back at the end of the night and sit there while you guys tear it all down. And we'll,
Yeah.
So, God loved the parents, and some parents were more supportive than others, but it was, because that was before we were 16, we were doing that. We were doing this when we were 13, 14, 15 years old, didn't have driver's license.
Yeah. Oh, crazy to think about. So you mentioned that MC, you were hyping the crowd and working the microphone. Where did you pick those skills up to be able to do such a thing?
I've been asked this before, and I learned it as I went along, because there weren't mobile DJs back then. There wasn't somebody that I could go see. There wasn't the internet. I couldn't buy a Randy Bartlett CD and learn how
Right.
to do something. And it was all it was all self-taught. And one of the things that we did used to do was we would record the shows as we put them on, so I could listen back on them,
Mm-hmm.
and at home, and I would be like, "Oh, that sounded good. I'll say that again." Or that sounded bad. Don't ever say that again.
Sure.
you know, and so it was all in the early days. It was all self-taught. I bet the only thing, I mean, occasionally there was, at the high school that I went to, they would bring in this radio DJ from San Francisco, Dr. Don Rose, and he would come in and he would do stuff, but he was never, hey, put your hands in the air, senior class, make some noise kind of guy. It was
Sure.
more of a radio kind of thing where he would announce this song and that song and da 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 da. But it wasn't really a hype thing. But that was probably the closest any kind of early influence that I had.
Mm-hmm.
But everything else was really self-taught. Just throw it out there and see what sticks.
Yep, and the trial and error for surely.
Exactly.
Big part
Yeah.
of what we did back then. So you're doing high schools and such throughout your teenage years. When did you get that first experience in finding or doing a wedding? How did that come about?
Well, my first wedding, I was working in a grocery store as a butcher and still DJing on the side. And one of the guys in the butcher shop was getting married, and he asked me if I'd do his wedding. And I had never done one before. I had never even been to one, and I didn't really know what to do.
Yeah.
And again, there wasn't somebody that I could go to and go, hey, how do you do weddings?
Right.
I didn't know anybody. And so I went and did this wedding, and I remember sitting with Bob and Katie. I remember their names, great people. And we're going to do a first dance. Okay, first dance, great. What and they kind of ran through it. And when I went in and did their wedding, I took in my school system because I didn't know any better, because that's what DJs did.
Mm-hmm.
And we had trussing and lights and the whole 9 yards, a bubble machine, and it's a gig. It was a gig.
Yeah.
And it was fine. I never really enjoyed doing weddings because they weren't loud enough. And my very first business card said, "We just want to play it loud."
Nice.
That's what it. And our name and phone numbers. Me and Mike St. Pierre. We have both our phone numbers. And that was our very first, because that's all we really wanted to do. We wanted to go someplace where we could play music and not have our parents tell us to turn it down.
Sure.
And so I would do weddings during the summer when schools weren't around.
Sure.
Schools are out. I got and then I got my very first agent that started booking me gigs in 1974. And he was huge into schools, and he kind of would do the same thing where, summertime rolls around. Yeah, I'll book some weddings because he's got to keep the money coming in.
Yes.
And, so that's on the side until I went full time in 85. So, yeah.
Nice. Yeah. That's so hard to envision when you see all the resources and everything we have today of how different it was as we were, learning in the 70s and 80s, all the little aspects of this. How do you do a wedding? I've never been to one before.
Well, and even buying gear. I mean, there wasn't DJ specific gear.
Yeah.
We were buying either band gear or making it. My very first mixer, my buddy Don, who I talked about earlier, who was an electronics guy, he built my very first mixer.
Wow.
You couldn't go down to a store and buy a DJ mixer.
Yeah.
Radio Shack was about the closest, store that we had that we could get stuff from.
Mm-hmm.
But trial and error, trial and error. So
yeah, that was a big part of it. So when you got into the agents, then is that when you kind of transitioned, or you added some corporate type things to it, or did that really come after 1985?
Yeah, the corporates came really late. The corporates didn't really kick in until I moved to Maui.
Okay.
And then when we moved back, because I was all about the school dances. Mm-hmm. I mean, if it wasn't a school dance, I really didn't want to do it.
And about what year did you move to Maui?
Oh my God, I should remember.
It's the early 2000s.
Yeah, I want to say like 2002,
somewhere in
something
that
like that. Yeah. And when I moved to Maui, I assumed the same. I assumed I'd be doing school dances
Mm-hmm.
because that's what I was.
Yeah.
And I went to Maui and kind of a you know cocky little guy. I go because I was big time over here with my schools. I figured I'd go to Maui. They'd hire me.
Mm-hmm.
Who wouldn't want to hire Chuck the DJ? He's a
Yeah.
school guy.
Yeah.
Well, but when I got to Maui, I found out that there was already guys doing schools, and they weren't Chuck the DJ. Plus, they didn't pay any money over there,
Mm-hmm.
and I couldn't survive because I was full time at that point. And that's when I fell into the agents on Maui, and they started booking the destination weddings and corporates and things like that. So, and then schools. I mean, in the 8.5 whatever years that we were on Maui, I could probably count the number of school dances I did on two hands and not use all my fingers.
Sure.
So yeah. So it was a big change for me in that area, with going from the corporates to the schools and the energy, because the energy from the school dances you just cannot beat.
Yeah.
At least back then. I haven't done a school dance for so long now. I have no idea what the energy is at a school dance anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that the school dances back then, they helped keep me young, because I did start a little bit later in age, going full time than a lot of guys that were around. So I think they really kind of helped keep me young and keep my attitude, and I really enjoyed them.
Yeah. Yeah, and then that over this time, just before the Maui, is really when you had that online presence as kind of a coach and mentor for a lot of us who were getting into school dances or trying to improve that side of our business.
Yeah, I mean, the pre-Maui days was when I was involved. I wrote articles for both Mobile Beat and DJ Times magazine. I was presenting seminars at both DJ Times Expo in Atlantic City and in Las Vegas for Mobile Beat.
Mm-hmm.
And I, again, the forums for Mobile Beat and the forum DJ Chat with Sid. I was moderating their school dance board on both sites. So yeah, I mean, I was all about school dances, and at the time, that's kind of what I was known for. I was the school guy. So yeah, that was huge. That was huge. When I left Maui, or when I left to move to Maui, some of the schools that I had been doing like all their dances for 15, 16 years were like, oh my God, what are we going to do now?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, it was huge.
Yeah. That part back then, it wasn't uncommon for us to be working for schools for 5 to 10 years, because I didn't feel there was the turnover back then with staffing as there seems to be now, because most of the schools, it's like 2 years and there's somebody new for, at least that's what it's been up here in Minnesota.
Yeah, I mean, some of the activities directors that I worked with at schools, pre-Maui, I mean, they were at that school 10, 12 years.
Mm-hmm.
And, so there was always, you work with the same guy, you're working with the same guy. And, occasionally a school would be like, well, we're going to try somebody new. And, oh, well, okay. Next month they're calling me back because, whatever. There's a real weird line, again, back then, with the way you had to deal with the students and the teachers, keeping both happy without making the other ones mad. I was really good at running that line, of keeping both sides. So that was a strong point for me. So
and that was a huge struggle. I mean, it certainly is today, but then it was one of those things that, because many kids were just starting to feel their oats, which they still are today, but there were songs that most of the songs were fairly clean enough to play, but there were some, and the kids those were the ones that they were insistent upon having those played.
Yeah, and they've gotten to the point now. I have done when we moved back from Maui, which we've been back. I want to say 10 years now. One of my DJ buds had me do a school dance, and it was a school that I had done previously that I used to do. Like, in fact, I shot my promo video at this particular school, and I was excited to go back. I was like, "Oh, this is great!" And I went up there, and it used to be one of those schools where you could play a country song, you could play a hip hop song, you could play a rock song, and the kids would dance, and it was great. And I remember at this school dance, somebody asked for a country song, and I can't remember what it is off the top of my head, but I remember playing it. And I remember 3/4 of the auditorium sitting down on the floor and booing me.
Yeah.
And I was like,
what?
And that was the last school dance I did. I said, I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm not dealing with that. So
yeah, things have definitely
I hope I don't
changed.
make anybody mad.
Yeah, and precisely. It's definitely changed with that. So Maui, of course, got you into the corporate world, and what kind of was there a skill set that you feel is kind of different from what you were using in the school dance world to moving to the corporate, or was it a lot of it just able to transition over to the different type of events?
I think the big thing with the transition for me was um, on Maui specifically. There are some great DJs. And again, now I have moved away, so things could have changed. But at the time, there was only a couple DJs that were great MCs.
Hmm.
So the skill set that I brought to Maui, which the agents found and started, realizing that, hey, this is great, is not only could I DJ, but I could also be that guy that was up there with the awards ceremony, and I
Hmm.
could also be the guy, doing this, that, and being out there in front, being a front man, being
Right.
noticeable. And I did karaoke too, which helped a lot too. Where a lot of the DJs on Maui, again, great DJs, and nice guys, and they could, but they weren't necessarily that front man. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Hmm.
So in the corporate world, that was real important, and I was really good at that.
Nice.
And so that was a skill set that I talk a lot anyway. You can tell I just and that helps in those
Sure.
instances, and being able to think on your feet and improv, and that's always been a strong point for me.
Which, of course, many of those skills were honed in years of hyping the crowd and working with your schools, for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, I've told the kids numerous times. It's like if I can read to lower elementary kids in a way in which it captures their attention, those are skills in which I can use to capture a crowd's attention and to be able to keep that, because there's so many things that can go with working with students or children to adults because they're just big kids, pretty much.
Yeah, and like I say, a lot of that stuff, we're all self-taught doing that,
Yeah,
because those resources that are so readily available now
just
weren't readily available back
yeah.
then. And so that's that skill, and I think sometimes I think some of the people that are starting out today, it's kind of sad on some levels, because they're reading or they're watching YouTube videos or whatever, but they're not having to have that, kind of thrown out there and learning on your own, and that's can be frightening,
Hmm.
and that's good. I think that's strong. I don't know. I just enjoy the way we did it. I'm,
Yeah.
I'm lucky that the way we did it.
Yeah, I think so. The idea of being able to go out there, because when we had a victory, when we had an idea and we tried it and did some things and tweaked and such, and then it finally worked and worked really well. There was a higher level of satisfaction than to be, oh, this is something that will work really well, and you just basically copy and paste, and it's like, well, yeah, it did work really well, but I don't feel the same level of zone ownership as the other.
Well, that's like even going to the conventions, going back to the convention days when I was going to or running seminars, and while I was going to other guys' seminars, it's like, look, this is what I do, and go ahead, take my ideas, but make it your own.
Hmm.
Don't word for word me, or don't, whatever. Put your own twist on it, and that's satisfaction. Because when you're driving home at the end of the night after the gig, and you did, you rocked it because you did XYZ, and it was from here or from
Hmm.
here, that's satisfaction, as opposed to, well, yeah, I just did what so and so said to do, or
Yeah.
which is good, but it's not the same. It's
Not the
not the
same.
same.
Yep. Having your heart into it, that's for sure. So, Chuck, when you came back from Maui, how did you basically reestablish your business? Did you end up going into the exact same area and kind of pick up some of your old contacts, or did you have to come back and really kind of start from scratch with that?
No, when we moved back from Maui, we moved back, yes, to the same area that we were in, and I knew that coming back, I knew that I didn't want to restart my own personal business back up,
Hmm.
right? I didn't want to do that because I was older. I can go ages here. I was 57 when we moved back from Maui, I think. And I didn't want to be 57 years old and having to restart Spectrum Mobile DJ, which is my company.
Yep.
So I knew guys here. I still knew DJs here. I'd still talk to them while I was on vacation on Maui.
Yep.
And I said, hey, would you book me as one of your DJs? You know, because I don't want to. I'm happy to come back. I'm happy to work for all you different guys, and just be one. And I want to say three or four said, yeah, sure, come on back. So I did. I came back, and for the first couple of years being back, I was, sometimes I would forget who the heck I was supposed to be,
Yes.
because you're working for 4 or 5 different companies, 3 or 4 different companies, and all. Who am I tonight?
Yep.
Which card do I hand out? And then I got hooked up with an agent who the other guys still kind of would book me, but once I got and they were DJs that had companies that would book me as one of their DJs. They weren't like entertainment agencies, right?
Right.
So my main agent now is an actual entertainment agency. They book bands and DJs and I don't know, people that spin and twirl and hypnotists and all kinds of things. So that's the main difference. And I'm a great DJ. Well, I'm a really good DJ. I'm not even a great. I don't want to blow my own horn, but I'm a good, solid DJ, and I can sell myself, and I can make people want me. What I'm not good at is closing the sale. Right? I'm $2,000. I'm $2,500. I'm $1,500. No, well, do you have a discount? Yes. I mean, I've always been terrible with the money part.
Right.
So the agent, I've always loved the agents, and because they're good at that, and that's why they make their money. And could I have made more money, in the long run by booking all my own events for the last how many ever years? Sure, but to me, it's worth having somebody hire the people that know what they do. To be professional. You want somebody to hire you as a DJ because you're a professional. Well, then you need to hire the people around you or pay for the people around you that do what they do.
Right.
Let us do what we do. So for me, it's worthwhile. It works. That's not for everybody, but for me, it works out.
And that's allowed you to continue to be this as your main primary income for so many years. Yeah.
The only other thing I really have ever done, now that we moved back, I golf. And so I work 2 days at a golf course to get free golf, and minimum wage. Ooh, that really wow. Yeah. Minimum wage. We are so jaded with us because when DJs work, we make so much money. It's hard to fathom, if you stop and think about it for a second, how many DJs do we know that go, I'm not going to go out for $1,000. I'm not, and talk to some of my buddies who work, 40 hours, 45 hours a week for maybe $1,500. And I'm not going to go out for 4 hours and do that.
Yeah.
We're jaded with that.
Oh, very much so. Very much so. And that's one of the big things. The old thing is like, oh, wow, those new speakers. Wow, they're really nice. Well, I'd have to do 2 gigs for that, which is all, what it is. But once you have that side job where you're working hourly, it becomes, okay, those new speakers are really awesome, but do you know how many weeks I would have to work to pay for those from my day
my
job?
rent. Yeah.
Exactly. Or you puts it into a different perspective and you're like, well, maybe the old ones still work pretty well.
Yeah. We're really lucky at what we do, and how we get paid for it.
Oh, for sure. So, as you've been in the industry a long time, I've been in the industry not quite as long, but we're both there, and we're getting to that time where we're going to be looking at kind of the end game, or our exit strategy type of a situation. Kind of share a little bit of what some of the things that you have been thinking about in regards to that, and how you would like to kind of continue, and when that time will become to hang up the headphones for you.
Wow, that's tough because I know I am getting older, and I know that as far as brides and grooms go, I'm almost aging out. Not quite, but I am, and I know that if a bride is looking at XYZ DJ over here and they're looking at me over here, and comparing apples to apples, and this guy's 25, 20, 30 or 40 years old, and I'm old and I may not look my age, but I don't look 40 years old or even 50 years old.
Yeah.
And so there is that coming up. What I've gotten into more the last, again, couple of years are the game shows. And even karaoke, doing sound systems. My agent that books me, she books a lot of rehearsal dinners on Friday nights, and she books a lot of, she's got a string quartet and that they need sound for the thing. So I've gotten more into some of that production type stuff. I guess you'd call it, sound system rentals and all that kind of stuff.
Sure.
And yeah, they don't pay what we're used to, but they still pay fairly well. And I can see myself doing more and more down the road when the weddings and even some of the corporates. But I think you can even be an old corporate DJ, because I don't think that age for the DJ parts. As long as you can, as long as you can keep current with your music and you're vital and you're not just sitting there going. I think you can be whatever age and do it. But I can see, like say, for me, that's the games and the karaoke and some of that other stuff, other than being like the wedding DJ, is kind of where my life is actually leading. That's where I'm heading. That's kind of where I'm thinking.
Yeah.
I buy less gear now than I used to. I used to buy gear every time I turned around, but because now you're right. We're looking towards the end here, as opposed to, hey, look, I'm going to, 20 more years now, I can use now, and that's not happening.
Let's talk about a little bit about, when you mentioned the gear, of course, and as we get older, it's a little hard to be schlepping gear around. How do you keep yourself physically fit enough to be able to do the things that you need to do for these different clients?
I'd like to say I work out and I watch my diet and all that kind of stuff, but I don't. I'm honestly terrible. And a year ago I had a heart attack, and that was a little bit of an eye waker, or waking me up a little bit.
Yeah.
I am fortunate that for as little as I do, I'm in pretty good shape. I do all my shows by myself. I don't hire a roadie. I don't do any of that kind of stuff. If I'm doing my game shows, or if you've seen my stuff on Facebook, or I've set up I do all my setups all my own. And and I play golf.
Sure.
I walk. My wife and I are taking walks. I don't walk as much as I should, or as long as I should. My wife does much better with that than I do. And I'm just trying to be better. But I would suggest people stay on top of that stuff. Don't do what I do. Don't the teacher knows what to say. Just don't do what the teacher does.
Yeah.
That's real important to stay fit and to be able to, I see DJs that are much younger than me with, back problems or legs, or they can't stand. I'm fortunate that if I'm doing a 5-hour gig, I can still stand the 5 hours. It's not a big deal. I'm streaming. I stand up for 3-4 hours when I'm streaming. I even, I stand up when I stream.
Yeah.
So that's just huge. I gave up Pop-Tarts after my heart attack. That's was my big deal. And I was a Pop-Tart fan, so, just you do what you do, and just hope that, hopefully you can take care of yourself.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Let's dig into the heart attack a little bit more. What kind of changes did you end up beyond Pop-Tarts? I mean, there's obviously going to be a few changes that you needed to make. And what were a couple of those?
I'm like, I had what they call a STEMI heart attack. STEMI heart attack, and I was fortunate that we caught it fairly early. The symptoms, because it wasn't like one of those symptoms where they're going, it was a different kind of symptom, and I was fortunate that we caught it fast. And my wife got on me, and we got the advice nurse. I got to the hospital, and the actual stent, had 100% blockage, and they put a stent in, and I was very lucky that things went as smoothly and easily as they did, and they didn't really change. I stopped drinking, which I never drank a lot anyway, but I stopped drinking. I stopped eating Pop-Tarts. I've tried to be better about things. And I've just tried to be more aware. But I'd like to say it was this big life changing, oh my gosh moment, where the light came down and you're like, ta-da!
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
And it wasn't on a lot of levels. And um, I kind of joked that it took so many years for me to have a heart attack and now that's all cleared up. Well, then I'm good. I got another 50 years before I'll have another one. So I'm fine doing what I do. Again, don't do what I do, or don't, take care of yourselves and try to eat better and try to exercise and try to watch your money and all that kind of stuff. The heart attack was an eye opener, just like, okay, well, yeah, you're getting older. That's really was the main eye opener for me with the heart attack is, yeah, damn, you're getting older. My dad had his first heart attack at 47. So, it took me 22 more years to have mine. So.
Yeah. And obviously that, it runs in the family. So you definitely would want to be, got to be careful with that. And yeah. So you're doing the games and such, and you've been developing that side of it. Where do you go for inspiration these days? We had the chat boards back in the early 2000s that we populated, but where does Chuck go today to learn, keep up on things, and be part of it?
Well, I still frequent the Facebook pages. I don't want to mention any of them, just specifically without, and I really like seeing what other DJs are doing. I didn't make it to the convention this year. Last year I was out of the convention. So, I'm like almost like every other year kind of thing. And I have a buddy, actually, he's still on Maui. His name's Alan, who is big into the games, and he pushes me a lot. And in a good way, hey, you need to get this game down. And here's a new game that's out there. What do you think of this? Or, the wireless buzzers, for some of these other games. And I've gotten into those. And Alan is probably the biggest inspiration for me for my games, and that kind of thing. And he's older too. And it's nice. It's funny, when you're younger, you think, oh, the younger, all the old guys, whatever. But now as you're older, to be able to see some of these older guys still doing things, that's huge. That's great to know that that's still out there and you can still do it. And, seeing some of those guys, on the senior board on Facebook, and it's really great. Randy B, I don't know, I don't want to mention names, but yeah, Randy was a huge inspiration for a long time, but now he retired. But he still pops. He still pops around.
He's still there. He just
exactly. We grew up in the same area. Our daughters were in Girl Scouts together. So he's been around a long time, and he's always been great. I don't do what he does. I as far on the level and stuff like that. But he's seeing successful other DJs, it's just that you can do it, because again, when we were starting out and we were growing up, a career as a mobile DJ,
wouldn't got that spot,
right. So to see these guys that could do it, and it's like, that's great. So and so's doing it, and so and so's doing it. Mad Joe, I'm so hard with not names. I don't want to. These guys are great. Now you see DJs in commercials on TVs and all this kind of stuff. And so everybody now it's like that's a career.
Exactly,
you can do it as a career. And so it's nice to be able to see some of these older guys still doing the thing, and that's an inspiration, right there.
Definitely, and of course that online networking that we can do in those. You mentioned some of the Facebook groups, that there are some sources there that can help to answer questions, change or to expand our thinking or our knowledge base with, hey, here's a new game. Little things like that can be so valuable.
Well, even the new music, you watch some of the chats, and the guys are talking about XYZ new song, the Bruno Mars new song I had never heard of until somebody started talking about it. And I mean, it's like, wow. And, back when we were doing schools, you're doing schools so often and kids are asking for songs. You kept current because you knew what was going on. You're there every week and you're seeing what the requests are. When you get away from that, it's harder, because I've never been a big fan or believer in lists like Billboard Top 100 or whatever, because that might be a great song, it might be number one on the Billboard charts, but nobody's dancing to it,
Yeah, exactly.
you
Yeah,
know.
it doesn't work for us,
And
but
right, exactly. You know, it might be a great tune to listen to, but nobody's dancing to it. And if nobody ever asked me for a song or a group, I'm like, I mean, why?
yep.
You know. But it is nice to watch some of the chats, and they're talking about XYZ song, and I'll go get it and put it on the computer, and that way it's there, and yeah, music.
Yeah, exactly. One of the key tools of our existence when it comes to that. Fun. Good stuff. Chuck, our time is just about up here. If somebody'd like to just reach out and say hey, because there's probably folks out there that haven't heard from you in a long time and would like to connect, what's the best way for folks to connect with you?
Can I give an email address or
email, or which social media are you on the most, and how can they find you there?
Well, this is going to make me sound terrible. I'm mainly on Facebook.
Yep.
MySpace, man. My MySpace is huge, man.
It's coming on, man. It's coming back.
I'm on Facebook, and I'm on Instagram. But I don't do a lot, and I joke about the fact that I'm old. And on some levels I don't need to be, because a lot of the social media stuff, if you're trying to build your business or whatever, that's great to have. But again, most of my business is done through my agent, so exactly. I don't need to have it. Mm-hmm. I have probably one of the worst websites out there that you've ever seen, because I don't need one. And it's just but if you can find me on Facebook, Chuck Lenhart on Facebook. You can find me on Instagram, Chuck the DJ. I've got my own little streaming show, on Twitch. You can find me on.
Yeah. Is it under Chuck the DJ or Chuck Lenhart?
On Twitch, I'm Chuck the DJ CA. Chuck the DJ CA.
Nice.
And I stream a bunch, and I'm going to be on in about 3 hours for a raid train for a cancer benefit.
Oh, nice.
I enjoy it. The cool thing about streaming is that you get to play kind of music that you want to play. So, if I'm in a rock mood, I can play rock. If I'm in a dance mood, I can play dance. If I'm in a weird, funky Jimmy Buffett mood, I can
play some Buffett. Yep.
Exactly. So that's a cool thing about streaming on Twitch. So
yeah. Great stuff.
I enjoy it.
Chuck, thank you much for being on tonight. It was great to catch up and chat tonight, and we'll have to circle back here again and chat some more when we get into more of that history of the school dances and such.
Oh, it's been fun, John. And the stuff that you're doing for the industry, I mean, stuff like this, and the cats that you have on, Ben. I'm a huge Ben Stowe fan. I'm like a puppy dog. Ben Stowe. I mean, all these guys that you have on, and it's just tremendous for what you're doing for guys to learn right here, and Disc Jockey News. That's the kind right there.
Yeah, that's why we do it. Is there's so many lessons that guys like you and I have learned the hard way, and when we can share just little nuggets here and there and help somebody have a better business, better day, that's the important stuff.
I totally agree, and I hope more people take that to heart.
Yeah, that's important stuff for us. Gang, we're going to wrap things up in just a little bit. At the top of the hour, you'll be able to catch our next show, which is the Tuesday Night with Ben Stowe show. Ben will be coming in, and we will get to chat and have some fun. So look for that here at the top of the hour. Thanks again, Chuck.
Thanks, John.